Welcome, folks, to this week's edition of Tech Sales Advice. I am, of course, your host, Chris White, and I'm joined today by a gentleman who I have had the privilege of getting to know over the past couple of years. His name is Joe Colavito. He is the author of a number of books, one of which I happen to have right here in my hand, called Purpose is More Than a Side Hustle. It is our built-in GPS. He's also the co-founder of lifepurposescan.com. We're going to be talking about understanding and pursuing and connecting to our life purpose, how that relates to or correlates to some of the storylines that tend to go through our heads, some of the stories we tell ourselves, sort of the self-talk, as some people call it. And of course, true to the purpose of this LinkedIn Live show, how that might affect our success in sales. And folks, this is a live conversation. Here it is, Monday the 13th. It's noon on the Eastern time zone of the United States. And Joe, I'm delighted to have you here, sir. Welcome. How are you doing, my friend?
I am doing awesome, and I'm just so grateful to be here with you, Chris, for the invitation.
Well, Joe, you know I love you like a brother. I'm delighted to have you on, and folks, you know these conversations are by design. They are unscripted, unrehearsed, and unpredictable. So we're going to have some fun. By the way, if you're out there and you care to say hello, please feel free to do so. If you have any questions for Joe or myself, of course, please feel free to do so. Joe, do you mind just taking a minute and talking a little bit about your background and how you got to the point where you published this book and you launched Life Purpose Scan?
Sure, and I'll give you the quick version. Feel free to ask any questions. So my senior year of high school, I joyfully run towards my father and I say, I figured it out. I know what I want to do. And he goes, what's that? I said, I want to be a teacher just like you and mom. And he immediately said, you don't want to do it because you won't make enough money. He then suggested that I apply into the engineering school at a community college, and I'm not an engineer and was failing miserably, but I was saved by mononucleosis. Yes, saved by mononucleosis. Got a medical withdrawal and went back in, fell in love with marketing and psychology. And I'm still in love with both of those things. And I ran to my marketing professor and said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to major in marketing. I'm going to minor in psychology. And he said, you don't want to do that. You won't get a job. So the very first two people that I relied upon as a young man trying to figure out where I'm going said, you won't make enough money and you won't get a job. What you want to do is become an accountant. So I did. And it thus begins the journey that, years later ends up turning into that book, because purpose isn't a side hustle. You don't choose your career based on how much money you'll make. You don't make any decisions upon the lifestyle it's going to create. Purpose is our built-in navigation system. It's our way of making life better for others. You and I both know that because we work with Aslan sales training, and other centeredness changes everything.
Very well said. Two thoughts and two questions come to mind. First of all, in retrospect, are you thankful that those individuals that sort of steered you in a different, told you what you didn't want to hear, or do you think it would have been better for you to figure it out on your own? That's the first question. I'll hold the next one.
I'm gonna share a quote that just came to mind as you said that, right? So faith is believing in advance that which will only appear logical when viewed in reverse. Okay, so I'm able to look back with 2020 and realize that had I not been misled, by the way, with good intentions, bad directions. Okay. Had I not been misled, I wouldn't have had that tension, that friction, that we all need to be able to break through kind of the surface level of like who we are and how we appear, and actually get down to the roots. Like where's the real foundation of my life? And so had I not gotten off track, it wouldn't have been as wonderful when I finally got back on track.
Yeah. By the way, I want to double click on something you just said. Good intentions, bad direction. I mean, just hearing that makes me realize that anytime we get advice from people that care about us, I think it's important for us to remember that although they may have the best of intentions, they may not have the best of guidance or directions. And that's because I think oftentimes when we get advice from people who care about us and people that we care about, I think we almost feel as though we owe it to them to follow their advice. And what I hear you saying is that that's not necessarily the case. Don't confuse good intentions with good advice.
Yeah. So if I could, and this story's in the book, but it just makes me smile every time I think about it. So I was down in Texas, lots of construction, borrowed a friend's rental car, and was trying to get to have dinner with my friend James Earp and his wife Mary. And James gave me handwritten directions that were unbelievably accurate on the way there. I avoided everything that needed to be avoided. No stress. Perfect. On the way home, I got distracted, surprised, and I picked up my phone to make a phone call, and it was dark, and I lost. But unlike most men, I decided I'm going to a gas station. I'm going to go to somebody who knows this area.
You'll actually stop and ask for help.
I'm going to stop and ask for directions. And this is the lesson I learned that night. Be careful who you ask for directions, because if they don't know who you are and where you're going, they could actually cause you to get more lost. Good intentions, bad actions. So I ended up at 3 gas stations that night and ended up getting more lost as I went. And then I realized I actually had a GPS on my dashboard.
I love it. I love it. And by the way,
yeah. If you have a built-in GPS, you should turn it on and use it. And that built-in GPS is our purpose. It's our identity and our purpose and our values. And they will lead us to the places that we're supposed to be to make life better for others. So I literally got misled by my dad and my professor, and then misled by these 3 strangers at gas stations. And back to your question, you got to go through some bad things to end up with good direction.
It's well said. Well, and look, and you know a little bit of my story, and
Right.
as I reflect on how long it took me to get to a point where I was doing exactly what I knew I was supposed to be doing. It took me over 50 years, and it took a number of stops and starts and right turns and left turns. But in retrospect, I recognize that each of those stops was an important lesson along the journey. So what inspired you to put pen to paper on this book, Joe?
Yeah, I'll come back to that question because I think we would be missing something for the audience's behalf. What was the tipping point for you? When did you have that aha moment? So give them a little bit of your backstory, and then like this was the moment I realized I got to turn this around.
Well, and I appreciate you asking that. By the way, I think I'm supposed to be doing the questions, but I love the fact that you just turned the table on me and made me the interviewee. But
you said
I'm glad you asked.
Unscripted, right?
That's
you said
completely true. That's completely true. And nobody has done this with me better than you just did, by the way. So no, but I'm glad you asked because Joe, you may recall I started my career as an IT guy. I was a software engineer. Why? Because most of my certainly years in high school, I was told by my parents, you're really good at math. You'll be really good at computers. So what did I do when I went to college? I studied computers. Did I like computers? No. Did it come relatively easy? Yes. So I studied computers. And then what did I do? I got a job in the computer industry, at least in a computer field. And I did that for 15 years, by the way, 15 years into a career where I was making more money than I thought I'd ever make, but I was miserable in my job. And yes. And Joe, I had this feeling in my stomach for the better part of 20 years that there was something else I was supposed to be doing. And I think every step along the way was trying to satisfy that gut feeling, if you follow me. And to be fully transparent, what was the trigger? It was 20. Finally, I had published the book, and I had the support of my wife, because I paid a coach a lot of money to help me publish the book. And I got the support of my wife to publish. And then shortly after the book published, it got a fair amount of sort of attention in the market. And I had an opportunity to launch the business. And again, my wife said, you need to do this, partially because she was tired of hearing me complain about my job. But she said, I know you're going to be a success, and you have to prove it to yourself whether or not you can be. So that's sort of so many things led up to it, but the opportunity presented itself, and I finally took that leap of faith. You just used the word faith. I took that leap of faith. So and when you hear that story, what, because you're in this business of life, helping people discover their life purpose, what are some of the things that trigger when you hear my story?
I'm just going to go to the epicenter if I could, right? So the epicenter of it is this gut feeling you were getting. So you were getting this gut feeling of there's something more. There's something different. I feel like I'm out of alignment, but I can't put my finger on it. That's what struck it for me. And I can segue, because I didn't mean to take over your interview.
Please.
I can segue back into, so what led me to write the book, right? I'm greatly disturbed by the way the word purpose has been tossed around over the past decade, right? It's become like the keyword, the buzzword, we got to put that word in there somewhere, or we're not hip and current, right? But it felt like it was losing its actual meaning. And so at the core of the book, I just wanted to rescue the word purpose and bring it back to the most simple definition that I've been able to come to. And here it is. Purpose is our unique way of making life better for others. So you have a unique way of making life better for others. I have a unique way of making life better for others. Everybody has a unique way of making life better for others. But if we believe that our purpose is our job, or that our purpose is being a good husband, or our purpose is being a good father, we're diluting the actual power of purpose. Purpose is that thing that your gut was trying to speak to, that built-in PS, that literally allows you to make life better for others in every single role that you play. It was never supposed to be attached to a role. It was never supposed to be attached to an outcome. It's not the way you define success. It's literally the way you show up every moment of every day, and everyone around you just benefits from that. And so I wanted to rescue purpose.
I just so love that. By the way, shout out to Bill Balnave, colleague of mine. He said, huge wow moment. If you have a GPS, you should use it. And this is really what you're saying, Joe, is the GPS is purpose. And the definition is your unique way of making life better for others. Those are some of the most powerful words I think I have ever read and or heard. And I love this idea that you're on a mission to, quote, rescue purpose. So let's take this a step further now. One of the things that you and I talked about recently, and we will talk about again today, is how this plays into the stories that we tell ourselves, and the stories that replay in our mind. Help bridge the gap, because I don't think it wasn't obvious to me the first time you shared this with me, how purpose has anything, and this idea of finding our purpose or discovering our purpose or coming to peace with it has anything to do with the stories that we tell in our mind.
Yeah, and I actually just had something hit me that is new for me, so I'm going to wing it. If at any point this makes no sense to you or to your listeners, stop me.
This show is all about winging it, Joe. So come on.
Yeah. So I'm gonna show you what I call like the order of things, right? So if I know my identity, like if I am clear on who I am, now I can start to ask, okay, why am I here? Like, what is my purpose? So identity comes first. From that is born purpose. Then I need some values, going back to when your gut was telling you like left, right, and you're trying to find it, right? So many people are trying to find their purpose. They're actually not trying to find their purpose. They're trying to find where their purpose fits into making life better for others. How does it fit into my marriage and my parenting and my career and my neighborhood, right? So you can't try to find something that's on your dashboard. It's already in there, right? So that your purpose was never lost. Trying to figure out where it fits is what the challenge was. Okay. So let me just tell you the before. So before I knew my identity and my purpose, this is what it sounded like in my storyline, right? I am competitive. I need to win. It's me against everybody else. I outwork everyone. The harder I work, the more I will have. The only thing I really need to be happy in life is a wife and kids, a low golf handicap, and a high income. If I can just get those into alignment, right, I will be a man. Okay. So I had the wrong identity. I had the wrong purpose, which was I'm going to provide a lifestyle for my family. Right. So my identity is the job title that I have. My purpose is to provide money. And every decision I'm going to make is going to be attached to that foundation. That's the foundation of my life is protect your hobby of low golf handicap, protect your image of lifestyle, protect your image of income earner, become youngest partner in, right? And I look back on all that and it was just incredible waste of energy. And here's how I know that gut that you're talking about, mine was so empty. I had gotten everything that I set out to get. I was living in the country club. I was a member of the country club. I was competing for the club championship. We had 3 girls. I was driving a car that I wanted to drive. I was vacationing without thought to money, right? According to everybody around me, I was living the good life.
Yeah.
And I'll end with this. Here's the question that was rattling in my head every single day as I would pull up to my country club home and literally see bars on the windows and bars on the doors. And when I got in there, I felt like a prisoner. And I was asking this question, and it's still fresh. If this is the good life, how come it doesn't feel so good?
That's powerful. That's really powerful. By the way, Joe, can I just push our pause button for a moment? Folks, I'm speaking to Joe Colavito. He is the author of a book called Purpose is More Than a Side Hustle. It's our built-in GPS. He's the co-founder of Life Purpose Scan. Joe, we have a few people that have said hello. Chris Pompilio has been a guest on this show. Great topic, hitting home. Matt Elsom, also based in London. Matt, nice to see you. This is getting quite philosophical. Yes, Matt. When Joe and I chat, it does tend to get deep. By the way, before we close, we're going to talk about how this actually will help us in our careers as sales professionals. But yes, we are going to go below the surface in this conversation. So, Joe, I'm going to repeat some of what you just said. And it's not entirely unlike the experience that I had about 15 years into my career. You're driving the fancy car, you're living in the fancy home, you've got, and by the way, this whole idea of a small golf handicap, that's completely lost on me because I am not a golfer, and my colleague Bill knows that that's not part of my, that wasn't part of my facade.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
all you care about is the big income, the nice vacations, and you've got the picture frame family, and yet you find yourself saying, well, if this is the good life, why does it not feel so good? So where did you go from there, or what got you to the point where you said, okay, I need to write this book. There's something inside of me, and this actually is part of my purpose.
Yeah. So Let me just set the stage in terms of timing, and let's start to go from philosophical to super practical. Okay, heard you, Matt.
Let's.
Thank you. Okay, it's 2000. It's 2000 and it's 2000 when I first realized I'm off track. It's 2003 when I finally decided to do something about that and say, okay, I believe that I'm on this planet to teach, coach, and encourage people. So my identity isn't to be here to be a money maker, youngest partner. It's not about me. And so the more I make it about me, the more empty I feel. So I'm going to go from it being about me to what can I do to make life better for other people? And I made that shift. Okay. So how can I encourage and build up and coach and train other people? Okay. So I literally changed careers. By the way, it came at a price. The salary that I made in the new career in 2003 was less than 50 cents on the dollar of my worst year over the past 5 years. And it was around 20%, 20 cents on a dollar for my best year. So it came with some sacrifice. And like you, my wife got behind that, said, whatever it is you're trying to go do, let's go do it. Okay.
Let's go do it.
So the reality is it hits home when you realize that you are not who you want to be, that everything you've measured up to this point in your life is in 2 words: performance and appearance. It was all about my performance that I could measure and my appearance. I could measure income. I could measure golf score. My appearance was, I want to look like I'm somebody that matters. I want to sound like I'm somebody who's successful. And so whatever I had to do, whatever decision had to be made to protect that appearance and performance is what would drive my life. And by the way, it doesn't drive you a good place.
And therein lies the stories we start playing in our mind and the storylines that we start creating for our lives that in essence reinforce this idea that we have, right?
Yeah. So, and you just mentioned that. So if my foundation is I am youngest partner and golfer, and my purpose is to make more money and shoot lower golf scores. Okay. So that's the foundation I'm building my life on. That's not like philosophical. That was real. That's literally what I thought. Okay. That's what I thought success looked like. Okay. So now, knowing that's not a stable foundation, just picture these like 2x4s or 4x4s, and I'm just like nailing them in, trying to get them to hold that foundation steady long enough. And by the way, I was in my mid-30s, long enough that I could get to 55 because I had run the numbers and retire so I could play more golf. My whole world was built on an unstable foundation that I just kept tacking stuff onto, trying to get to a number that I could retire at 55, be a member of at least 2 golf clubs in different geographical regions for weather purposes, right? And vacationing. And as soon as I could get to that number, then I could live the rest of my life playing more golf and being available to my family.
You know what comes to mind for me, Joe? I remember a quote. I'm pretty sure this is pretty close to verbatim from Stephen Covey. He said, "So many people spend their lives climbing the ladder of success to getting to the top to realize that the ladder was leaning against the wrong tree." And that's really what you're talking about, right? Is you're climbing this ladder, right? Fortunately for you, you realized before you waited till you got to the very top and the very end that the ladder was leaning against the wrong tree, made the decision to climb down, move the tree, take a significant cut and pay to do so, and start over. By the way, you opened the conversation today saying that you went to your father and said, "I want to be a teacher." And he said, "You can't be a teacher. Don't be a teacher because you're not going to." And then you decided that you wanted to coach, train, and help others. So you sort of had it right when you were probably 18, 19, 20 years old, and you were steered in the other direction.
Go back to your gut, right? My gut said, I'm on this planet to be a teacher. What do teachers do? They give things to other people so other people can live a better life. So I was born to be a teacher. I added into that kind of encourager coach because they're different roles at different times. Okay. And then when I went to the marketing professor, I said, I want to be in marketing. Well, what does marketing do? They create messages, they create words, they inspire people, they get people to take action. And then the psychologist goes deep within, like what's really going on beneath the surface. So I am all those things. I was born to be all those things. And good intentions became bad directions. And it took me off track until the point where it was like, yeah, I'm so empty on the inside. How could starting over be worse? Like I don't know how it could be worse. It's like I literally was getting depressed and down, and I never got where I was suicidal, but I could see how somebody could get there if I kept going. Just all this effort is not doing anything to fulfill me.
Joe, let me pause us just for a moment again. Folks, I'm speaking to Joe Colavito. If you've just joined us, he is the author of many books, one of which is called Purpose is More Than a Side Hustle. It is our built-in GPS. He's a co-founder of lifepurposescan.com. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to ask. Carolyn Pilgrim, I hope I'm saying that correctly, loves this conversation. It's a rare thing to truly make the audience introspect on their life. Carolyn, thank you so much for those comments. So Joe, let's take the conversation a little bit further. One of the things that we talked about a lot is making better decisions, and how this applies to making better decisions in our personal lives, making better decisions in our professional lives. Help us sort of make the jump into how this conversation around purpose and the storylines that are going on in our minds help us make better decisions.
Yeah. So I'm going to say this briefly, then ask me another question and we'll keep going. Okay. If I don't know who I am, and I don't know, that's identity, and why I'm here, purpose, and I don't have some values to anchor my decisions, like to filter every decision through so that they'll have a positive impact on other people's lives. If I'm unclear on that, how could you expect me to know what college I want to go to, what I want to major in, what the right career would be? If I'm going to be married, what type of person could I best serve? Like, should I have children? Like, where do I want? How can I make any decision in my day-to-day, let alone my future planning, when I'm making it from an unstable foundation? So that's what I just learned over the last 19 months. I didn't realize that I was having to live through all this to get to that conclusion.
How does this apply to sales? Because you are by day, you are a sales trainer. You run sales training workshops. And so that might catch someone by surprise if the only thing they knew about Joe Colavito was the past 25 or so minutes of conversation. So how do you take this conversation and help sales professionals be more satisfied and more successful in their roles?
Yeah. So let me hit that end part first. The moment that you stop viewing yourself as someone who's selling somebody something else, start viewing yourself as someone who is serving someone so that they can have a better business, a better life, a better experience with their customers, right? So as soon as I go from selling to serving, that gives me a change of heart and mindset that kind of opens up the door to everything else. So just that to the side. But why do I love sales training? Okay. It's the ultimate battleground. Okay. There's two battles going on in every conversation. The storyline within, the battle I'm having with myself to overcome all the things that hold me back, and the battle I'm having with the person on the other end who might not need it or doesn't see they need it or they're closed. Okay. So I got a 2-level battle going on, and I just love solving that with other people.
Which of those two battles do you think is more difficult for most or many sales professionals?
Let's make it multiple choice for your audience, and we'll let people vote. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on this, right? Which is more difficult to overcome? The objections I have regarding whether I'm enough, good enough, this is the right time, that this person, is going to respect what I have to say, or they've got some objections regarding your product or service. So is it A, the objections I have in my own mind that I'm trying to overcome, or B, the objections they have that I'm trying to overcome? Which one's more difficult, Chris?
I love that. So we'll invite people, folks, if you're online, if you care to respond to Joe's question, what do you think is more difficult? The objections in our head or the objections coming from the people that we are serving? I think it's the objections in our heads that are, and Chris Hickey is the first to chime in. He said, hey, I'm going to say it's the objections in our head. And I think to a certain degree, Bill Balnave also said, A is the toughest. The first thing that comes to mind is being honest with ourselves about the objections that are in our heads and recognizing them as self-limiting thoughts. To me, that's the first thing that comes to mind is being honest with myself about this. Chris Pompilio also said, in my own head. Yes.
Awesome. So, hey, I'm gonna do something for you. Remember I told you I love psychology. I'm going to hold up a book that a friend handed me in 2015. And he said, this book is going to change your life. And this book is going to allow you to change the lives of all those salespeople that you train every day.
Okay.
And with that, I'm like, oh man, what's the title of the book? Are you ready? The Psychology of Sales Call Reluctance.
The Psychology of Sales Call Reluctance.
Yeah, this book's going to change your life. And by the way, it actually will, but it won't. I'm trying to get this where you can see it. So there it is. Look how dated this looks. Okay, are you looking at it?
We got it. And by the way, I love the $1,000 bookmark.
Yeah. So he hands me this book, and I said, Mitchell, I'm bored already. And he says, take it home and read it. Okay. So I'm going to read you the answer to what you were just saying. It's literally here under a chapter called Thought Realignment. Thought Realignment. Okay. Mathematically, the number of call reluctance types and countermeasure combinations is enormous. Yet, regardless of the particular combination of countermeasures you use, there are only 4 steps to overcoming call reluctance. So in other words, this story you're telling in your head that is holding you back from hitting your quota, having the lifestyle you want for your family, having comfort and confidence when you make a call, you're 4 steps away from reversing it. Would you like me to share them?
I would love you to share them.
But by the way, around and pat yourself on the back because you got the first one. Okay.
All right. I will pat myself on the back because you told me.
There you go. Right. First, you must admit that you have call reluctance and that your call reluctance is keeping you from earning what you're worth. By the way, Matt, is this getting practical? All right.
I hope so.
Number 2, you must diagnose, find out which particular type or types of call reluctance you have. And in order to do that, you can then match that to the type of step-by-step countermeasures that would solve it. So step 1, admit it. Step 2, diagnosis. Step 3, match it to the right solution. And here's step 4, follow up. Make calls. Don't confuse a change in your outlook with a change in the number of contacts you initiate. A poor attitude in a good producer may not be desirable, but it's tolerable. A good attitude in a non-producer may be endearing, but it's fatal. So you can decide you want to change, but until you actually can hear the voices in your head, they will hold you back from serving people well and earning what you're worth.
You shared an example of this in practice. You had a recent, I think, sales training workshop or session with a sales team. And there was a very specific example you shared with me. Can you share that example with the audience so that they can really see this more a little bit even in practice?
Yeah, I'm going to pull back to an older one, Chris, just because that's a current client, just in case I just kind of protect that.
Please.
So I'm walking as you do. I'm walking amongst 20 cubicles that all have, high potential, hungry salespeople that are on commission, right? A lot of energy, a lot of calls, and I'm listening to a person, basically on a conversation when I hear. So yeah, so we could definitely look up an insurance policy that would be a good fit for you. What I'll do is I'll do that work and I'll email you some options, and then you email me back. And the person on the other end of the phone says, "Well, I'm not at work anymore." And the person says, "Oh, well, I didn't realize you weren't at work. I don't want to take any more of your time. I'll just let you go and I'll get this email." No, 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 no. Don't let me go. I'm not at work. I want to do this now. I need the
Wow.
insurance.
Wow.
And the person says back, salesperson says back, if you want to. It's like,
Wow.
the customer was begging him to get past his yielder tendency, which is, I'm being pushy, I'm intrusive, it's never a good time, I'm bothering you. The fear was so thick. Oh, by the way, this person was the manager of 8 other people in the cubes next to him.
Wow.
Yielder tendency.
So he's basically setting the example.
Not only is he setting the example, he is contagious. 63% of all salespeople have what I was just telling you about. It's not the right time. I'm being a bother. So have you ever heard this on a call before, Chris? Hey, this is Joe Colavito with. Do you have a couple of minutes?
Of course I have. I got one this morning, actually.
Okay. Do you want to know why they're asking that? Because the storyline in their head is, I'm bothering this person. They don't have time for me. They don't need what I have. And so I don't want to feel that ugliness. And so I'll just ask if they have time. And if they say no, I can check off one more activity, even though I have no pipeline, and it's not going to lead me to conversion.
So let's go back to the 4-step process that we just talked about. The first is admitting that maybe there are some self-limiting doubts, some self-limiting storylines going through my mind. And by the way, the source of that might be a better connection or the lack of a connection with purpose, which is my purpose is to help people in whatever phase that might be, right? Whether that's I'm here to help them have better insurance for their family or what have you, right? And probably it's something greater than that, but they're lacking some level of purpose, right? They have to diagnose.
Let's pause there, Chris, because this is really a good breakdown, and I'll go rapid fire with you. Okay, so let's just stick with insurance. Okay,
please.
There's a lot of people that start their careers in insurance, and they're told, go to your friends, go to your family, and it starts to build up all this anxiety and awkwardness and uncomfortableness, right? And so then they tell themselves, I'm just not good at sales. I don't like sales. No, you could be great at sales. You don't like feeling uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable to call your family and friends and try to sell them something. So why don't you change your perspective to one of purpose? When someone, Chris, does not have auto insurance and they get in an auto accident, what are the consequences?
They're negative.
They're very negative. Could be upward to fines, jail, lots of money, really have a negative impact on their life. Okay. So if I believe I'm protecting you from having a moment where you're uninsured, then I should have earned the right to ask you some questions to make sure you have the right insurance. Purpose. Admit that I've got a reluctance that's keeping me from running with purpose in every step. Okay, go to step 2.
Diagnose. So how might we diagnose this situation?
Yeah. So this tool, and I'm going to leave it nameless. We can tell people more about it someday if we want to. This tool has been in existence for 42 years. Okay. And it literally diagnoses 16 types of fear. 16 types of a storyline in somebody's head that literally keeps them from doing what they need to do to best serve other people. So I'll give you 3 examples. Yeah. 3 samples.
Yes, please.
Okay. Yielder, which we just covered. It's not the right time. I'm being a burden. I'm bothering this person. Okay. Okay. Second one is over preparer. When you find somebody that's doing 30 to 40 to 45 minutes of research before they pick up the phone, and their top producing friends next to them do the same thing in 3 to 5 minutes, it's because they're telling themselves a lie. What if I get on the call and they ask a question I can't answer? I'm not prepared yet. And here's how I fixed that one, by the way, just quickly. I asked, so Chris, when was the last time you were on a call and somebody asked you something you couldn't answer or you couldn't find quickly and that you were not prepared? When was the last time somebody said, you're wasting my time, you don't know what you're doing? And you want to know what the answer? Well, you might not have it, but guess what? Guess what the answer I get to that when somebody has over prepare? They go like this. I can't think of one.
Yeah.
Like, I know. Because you're spending 45 minutes getting ready for a call that only takes 3 minutes to get ready for, because in your head, you don't think you're prepared, but you're prepared. So here's a test. Take everything off your desk and make 10 calls without access to anything. You're ready. You're prepared. Oh, I can't do that. It's like, well, when you can, I'll keep coaching you. But until you do that, you're wasting your time and you're never going to hit your quota. They're ready. Okay, number 3. It's got a really weird name. Let me pull this up because I was just looking at it. I want to say it the right way. Hyper Pro. Okay. And this one, Hyper Pro. Okay.
Oh, Hyper Pro. Hyper Pro.
Okay. So what does a Hyper Pro look like and sound like? I want to perform well. I want to appear well. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to do anything that would cause me to look like I'm not the expert because I'm a hyper pro. I tend to be a hyper pro. Okay. So I'm either yielding, making calls because I don't think it's the right time. I'm over preparing, wasting 10 times as much time as I need to get ready for something I'm never even going to encounter. Or I'm a hyper pro. I don't want to be embarrassed. So I'm going to deflect and I'm going to dodge and I'm going to manipulate and I'm going to do all kinds of things to, like, hey, did I tell you about my big bonus I got? I just bought a Porsche with it. What'd you do this month? It's that person.
Interesting.
So
to tie this together, the first of the 4 steps was to admit that there's some sort of storyline going on in our mind that's preventing us from succeeding or doing the things that we need to do in order to succeed. Second, we need to diagnose, and you just shared a few examples. Are we over preparing? Are we being a quote hyper pro, or any number of other things? And then let's take one of the 3 that you mentioned. The third thing was to address what you've now diagnosed. How might, and Chris Hickey brought up perfectionism. I love that. That's similar to this hyper pro. How might we go about actually addressing it once we've identified it, accepted it, and diagnosed it?
Yeah. So this book has a whole series of different things you can do, from wearing a rubber band that you zap yourself with to, other techniques. But I want to cover the one that I found the most helpful to people. Okay. So remember, if I'm telling myself a story, I need an intervention. Like I need to test, is that storyline true? Okay. So these are from this company, and they're called the 3 clearing questions. What does a clearing question do? It clears your head so you can actually go back to making calls with purpose and using your talent and your time wisely. Okay. So there's 3 clearing questions. All right. And they build on one another. Do I have to feel the fear right now? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up. That's question 2. Sorry. Is there proof this has to be a frightening situation? Is there proof that picking up the call right now after 3 minutes of preparation, right? Is there proof this has to be frightening right now? Do you want to know what a person with over prepare tendency says? Yes, there's proof. I can feel it. My palms are sweating. My mouth is getting dry. I'm getting butterflies, and there's proof. It's like, yeah, well, that's not actually proof. That's just feelings. But for right now, let's just say that you have proof. Okay. Number 2, do I have to feel the fear right now? Like in this
Mm.
window that I'm supposed to be making 60 calls a day, if I feel this fear right now and take 45 minutes to prep for a call, how many calls am I getting in the day? Maybe 10.
Mm.
Okay. If my peers are making 60, and we do recognize at some point activity turns into productivity, right? So if I make the right number of calls the right way, it'll turn into actually people to talk to, which is what we're really after. Okay. And here's the third question. Do I have to feel the fear this much? So
Mm.
do I have to, is there proof that there's fear? Do I have to feel it right now? And do I have to feel it this much that I prepare for 45 minutes or I don't pick up the call and make more calls? And when somebody understands that it's actually their own story that's keeping
Mm.
themselves from hitting their own quota, that's keeping them from staying in this job with joy, and now they job hop to another thing. Well, guess what? When you job hop, you take your fear
Mm.
with you.
Yeah.
So if you don't remove your fear at job A, you're not going to be any more successful in job B. It's just going to feel better for a little while until you realize you're
Mm.
not going to hit your quota again. And then you jump to job C. And this isn't good
Yeah.
for the employer. It's not good for the employee. So that's what we're fighting against. It's thought realignment. Like you've got to overcome your own objections before you can handle other people's objections.
I love that. And Joe, if I may, as you well know, I work with a lot of sales engineers or what other some organizations call solution engineers, pre-sales, solution architects, and they are not necessarily in the business of cold calling or making a lot of calls. They are in the business oftentimes, in many cases, of being invited in by an account executive to give a demo or give a presentation or a technical talk. And the way I'm translating what you're saying is it's very similar. It's the fear of, I've now been asked to show up and demonstrate, but many of us tend to make the mistake of over preparing or being hyper pros, being perfectionists, worrying too much about what it is that we're going to say. So all these rules translate and all these ideas translate, but it's more to being asked to step in front of a customer instead of picking up the phone. Do you agree that these translate to that part of the sale, if I can use that term?
1000%. It's fully transferable, right? It's a fear of when it's my turn to show up, will I let people down? When it's my turn to speak up, will anybody be listening? What if Chris puts me on 3 of these demos today and we lose all of them? I mean, then the reputation is going to get around that don't have Joe, that sales engineer on a call because he loses every deal. Well, the truth is, and I know this, it's never going to be the sales engineer, unless they're just totally incompetent, that loses the deal. It's going to be because there was never enough discovery. There was never enough courage by the part of the salesperson to actually go deep enough down to figure out what was on that person's whiteboard. What were they saying to themselves? What's the real gap to be solved? So I can come back and prepare Chris, my engineer, and say, here's what they really need. They don't see the gap between this and this. And if you would just focus on that for 5 minutes, we'll ask them if they want to see the rest.
So good. So good, Joe. I mean, the words you just shared, not only are they music to my ears, I'm sure they're music to the ears of my audience. That there's so much truth in that, folks. And Joe, let me just push our pause button again. Folks, I'm speaking to Joe Colavito. He is the author of a number of books, to include Purpose is More Than a Side Hustle. It's Our Built-in GPS. We've been talking about how purpose, and I wrote it down. If you missed earlier, he defines purpose in this way: our unique way of making life better for others. And we've talked about how discovering this and really our perception of purpose, whatever that is, really begins to drive the storylines in our head. And then the storylines in our minds, they drive decisions we make. They become, in many cases, barriers to our performance. And we've been unpacking this in a number of ways. Believe it or not, Joe, we've been at this for almost 50 minutes, and the time has sort of disappeared very, very quickly. So we're gonna go here just a few more minutes. I first of all, I just can't thank you enough for being a guest. I think I'm going to invite you back again so we can have another conversation. Maybe we'll do this again next year. As you thought about our visit today, was there anything in particular that you were hoping our audience would hear, or a perspective that you think is worth sharing that maybe we haven't touched on?
I think we've brushed up against it, but there's two things around my heart as you were speaking. Number one is, and I'm just going to look into the camera, you have a purpose. It's literally right inside of you, and it's as simple as the unique way you make life better for other people. So you don't have to go find it. It's not something you have to search for. You just have to turn it on and use it. So get around some people that can explain to you the things you naturally do that you might not be aware of, that you do that make their life better, and then figure out how to amplify and magnify those. Okay. Secondly, I want to talk to the sales engineer out there, and even the salesperson, right? So if you're the salesperson and you're letting these objections in your head keep you from really engaging and connecting with people that have objections over the phone or across the table, or if you're the sales engineer that's kind of called in to win the deal, okay, here's your purpose. Understand what that person on the other end of the phone really needs, and then do everything you can within your power to present that to them and give them options as to whether or not it's actually fitting that need. And if everybody went around sales and sales engineering that way, the common purpose would be helping everyone else that we're talking to's life or business or customer's life be better. So it came full circle for me that, like, I didn't realize that there's purpose within our purpose of training salespeople. And that is, it's time to get out of our heads and just work from our hearts, right? In your head is a storyline that's holding you back. In your heart is a desire to do good things for other people. Just lead with your heart instead of your head.
We are most fulfilled when serving other people. And that's really what you're talking about, Joe, right? We are most fulfilled when serving other people. And I love what you said about purpose, and this notion that it's already there. It's not something we need to find. If anything, I think we need to be willing to hear or listen to what we know is there. And that was a question that I was going to ask you is as you've worked with individuals, with clients, and you've taken them through this, and I do want to ask you to talk a little bit about this life purpose scan, but as you've sort of helped sort of people hear that, do you feel like that's a big part of it is we for some reason we tend to tune out that tone or that feeling for whatever reason? Is that what gets in the way for a lot of people, do you think?
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I think it's definitely what gets in the way. And just briefly on the life purpose scan, we were looking for a way to ask people a series of questions online that they hopefully just top of mind answer, so that when the report kicks out to them, they can go, oh, so those are the things that are improving my decision-making capacity. Oh, and there's a couple things that are limiting my decision-making capacity. What are these? Let me read a little bit more about what these are. Oh, and here's some questions that it gives me to ask myself. So we're the only tool in the marketplace that does the opposite of most assessments. Most assessments, and you know this to be true, they ask about you, okay? And when you get done telling them about you, they tell you about you.
They say, here you are.
They tell you about your
excited because they say, yes, that's me.
Yeah. Let me give you words that describe your behavior, your decision-making, your preferences, how you like to communicate, how you process information, what you do when you're stressed. Let me tell you all about you. And I just had an allergic reaction to that. And so did my co-founders. So we've actually created a tool that's got a two-step process: self-discovery followed by guided discovery. So now that we can see the things that are holding you back, let's talk about them, and let's test your storyline, perception versus reality. true or false, helpful or harmful, right? And so the guided discovery is to filter out those things that are holding you back from your full capacity, and to reinforce those things that are firm and would lead you to better decisions, better performance, better mental health, right? And so that's all we're doing. It's literally that simple.
And this is something that's available to individuals, to professionals, professional teams. Do you mind elaborating a little bit on that?
Yes, it is. We actually have 3 versions. One that we give to people that are in middle school through college, so it's youth. One that we give to anybody that's in the workplace, so anyone that's in their career, right, and they're grinding it out. And one we give to people that are 50 plus that are entering or preparing for their legacy years, so they're starting to plan retirement. Well, what's the commonality between those 3? They're all periods of transition. And when people are in transition, and they're not standing on a firm foundation of decision-making capacity, they operate like a weather vane. But if they're on a firm foundation of decision-making capacity, which by the way is identity, purpose, and core values, right? Then they operate more like a GPS. So we have a choice every single day. Am I going to be blown around and influenced by those people around me, new situations, things that are happening in my environment? Or am I going to be stable and reliable and consistent in my decision making because they're coming from within? I know who I am. I know why I'm here, and I know how I can make your life better, even if you don't want it, right? But if you'll engage with me in a conversation, be open to it, I can make your life better in 15 to 20 minutes, right? How? By helping you hear the things that are making your life worse. I'm actually not doing anything other than letting you hear you.
So powerful. So powerful. And I suspect a little scary for some people, because sometimes the things that we don't want necessarily to hear are the things that we need to hear the most in many cases. So I imagine it's both a little bit of fear and trepidation with excitement that people probably take on this program. So I think it's an amazing thing. The words that purpose is your unique way of making life better for others will never be lost on me. And just the way you sum it up, identity, purpose, and core values. I mean, to me, there's just so much strength, and it's been heard a number of times on this very show, the power of self-awareness. To me, therein lies self-awareness, your identity, your purpose, and your core values. And I think that's a great way to wrap things up. Final thought from you, Joe?
You are right. In the absence of self-awareness, how can I possibly have future clarity and know how to navigate within the influences of the world, right? It's hard. Okay. Yeah. My final thought is, you're right. It's uncomfortable to go deep. It's awkward to see things about yourself and realize, wow, like I literally have been putting the governor on my own acceleration. Like I've taken my golf cart that could go 40 and I put a governor on it and it goes 10 downhill for my safety, right? But I did that to myself. But the other side of that, right? The other side of that, to realize that you have a whole untapped capacity that came from your identity, your purpose, and your core values. So that's all we're trying to do, is just say, hey, check the foundation. If there's cracks in the foundation, it's hard to have stable, reliable, and consistent decision-making. If the foundation is firm, then move forward and do good things, right? Quit second guessing, quit hesitating, quit not picking up the phone call, quit going in to do the demo as a sales engineer and thinking like, what if I mess this up, right? You're not going to mess it up. You're the expert. The reason they hired you is because the salesperson doesn't know what you know. So take that into the call and serve people well with it.
So powerful. It's just awesome. Joe, I can't thank you enough for being here. This has been a great conversation. By the way, Barry Ross agrees with me. Barry, thank you for your comment. Joe, fair to say that you would welcome people to connect with you on LinkedIn?
Not only will I welcome people to connect me on LinkedIn, I'm going to go out on a limb that scares people. Here's my mobile number, 404-213-8997. I'm a text away. If your storyline is holding you back, text me and say, I need to clear my head. And I will make time for you. It might not be today, but I will make time for you.
Unbelievably powerful, Joe. Well, you literally are a man whose words and actions are in perfect harmony, and it's been a pleasure to have you on the show today. It's been a pleasure to be your friend and colleague, and I cannot thank you enough. I sure hope you'll come back and visit again. Folks, for those of you who hung around for this entire conversation, thank you so much. I'm guessing you've enjoyed listening to Joe's words as much as I have. Again, if you like this show, please, if you're not already doing so, please follow hashtag Tech Sales Advice. Of course, you can go to Tech Sales Advisors to learn more about me and my business. Go to lifepurposescan.com, or as Joe just invited you to do so, you can give him a text message if you care to do so. Joe, hang around backstage just for a moment. For everyone else, thanks all. Be well. Have a good week.
God bless.